And I'd say this is an important thing. This is Jesus saying to the self-righteous, I know what you think God is, but I'm telling you God is an old man who's foolish about his resources, loves a wastrel son. The son comes back and he gives him everything all over again, and he tries to explain it to the son who's been out there working his rear end off in the field, who can't understand why the father's like this. The father said, I can't be anything else but this. I said, can you accept what Jesus presents in the parable as an old man running before others to embrace the son who doesn't deserve it? Because no man in the culture of Jesus ran in front of others without losing dignity. Now, can you say this is the God that Jesus is presenting? And if so, what does it say to us? To say, until we enter into that radical vulnerability of forgiveness and reconciliation that God is, we don't understand God. So then you're telling us to be a softy and just to excuse our, no, I say I'm asking you to be tender and forgiving and reconciling. But that means the people that you're being tender and reconciling and forgiving to understand they've done something wrong, and that means you are prophetically present to the wrongdoing in order that they might know that forgiveness. Now, how you bring those two together in a balance, that's a strategy. That's something we have to work at, and God does do that. Jesus never tells the disciples when they're dumb that they're smart. Never. He says, get behind me, grow up. Oh, for God's sake. There's a constant exasperation in Jesus with the fact that they don't get it. But he never lets them go. And finally, he climaxes his tutelage of them by washing their feet and says, do you understand what I've done? Until you deal with one another in which people are not afraid of you because they know you are the one person can come into their life for good, you haven't really carried who I am. And that's what you pray for. So, because of time, let's bring this. The specific choices that we make are, in a sense, less important than the context. You say, all right, what is the context? The triple colloquy summarizes what I think is the Ignatian context for spiritual direction and, therefore, for discernment, the way we make our decisions about our life. And the older I get and the things I do that I know are bad, I look back and I'd say, frequently enough, it's not what I thought it was. It's that I really wanted to be paid attention to, and therefore I did these stupid things over here, but I know that it was the little kid back in the ball field who wasn't a good athlete, kind of wanting to be chosen for the team, and that's never left me. Now, I don't want that to get in the way in which I deal with other people. I don't want my insecurity to become their discernment process. And therefore, if there's somebody smarter than I, or better than I, or holier than I want them to be that way, and I'm not going to suddenly say, well, I don't want them to go too far because they might not need me anymore as a spiritual director. Oh, you know, people don't do that. Yes, they do. Power is intoxicating, even in the life of the Spirit. And so the beginning and the middle and the end that Ignatius talks about said, in your own history, not only can you look at events, but can you begin to understand what has made you a good person. Last year, I was asked to go to Loyola, Chicago to talk about vocations. And they had done so much work and also put out a volume of essays on vocation. I thought, I don't really have anything new. Then it came to me, you know what I'm going to talk about? I'm going to talk about vocation is, what are the memories you want to leave with people about who you are and what you've done? And that was the whole vocation talk was memory. I said, and you realize how memory holds us together as a church or as a nation or as a school. We remember the beginning and the middle and the end of what has created the culture of who we are. Now, how do you want to be remembered? What are the things you want people when they're off over your coffin and you're going, they say, you know, he did a lot of dumb things, but he was willing to listen. He was willing to forgive. He gave me hope when I didn't think I could have hope. He taught me how to laugh when I didn't think anything was to laugh about. Then you go to great literature and find out how often memory becomes the thread that holds the story of our humanity together. Then you go to the Gospels and say these are 4 memories for different communities about what Jesus meant for them. Then you say, that's so important then, isn't it? I said, yeah. And that's why a lot of spiritual direction, you have to let people talk about how they got to where they are. Now, I think Ignatius invites that, and we don't have a lot of time to go through all of it. But from the very beginning, Ignatius said, when you look at something, it's not the sins, it's the sinfulness. You say, well, what is that? It's the liabilities that we bear that make us do things that we know are bad. And frequently, they're things that have been done to us. And we recapitulate it, and therefore we need a forgiveness that first comes from forgiving the people that maybe taught us the wrong way to love, to succeed, to exercise power. That's been going on all my life, and then suddenly you let that go in a retreat. You say, well, that sounds like psychologizing. I said, well, it sounds like psychology is caught up with the spiritual masters and mistresses. That's all. Spiritual direction is a journey towards God and towards the mission God offers to a man or a woman. Discernment is a kind of map of that journey.